Welcome to the Rabia and Sana show. We're two Desi girls reinventing cultural norms with love to make difficult conversations easier to help you take courageous steps faster.
Whether you feel like a misfit now or have been breaking the standards, this podcast is for you, for the adults, the young. Come as you be and become your authentic self as you desire. Let's go reinvent some cultural norms together.
Hello everyone, I am Rabia Paracha. I have been a rebel without a cause for most of my life until I discovered my purpose to empower women to empower themselves. And that led me down a rabbit hole to become a life coach from CTI Coactive Coaching. And today I'm a mind and life power coach who helps people break free of their limiting cultural beliefs to find the life they love and the love of their life.
Hello everyone, I am Sana. I am from New Jersey, a Pakistani American. Professionally, I work in the clinical research field. And personally, I have always had this purpose of empowering women of South Asian culture to be able to live the life that they want to live and be true to themselves instead of what the culture expects them to be. And so here I am pursuing that purpose, and I am also studying to become a life coach. Let's get started.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Rabia and Sana show. I am so excited about our show today. We have an amazing guest and Sana is going to tell you all about her.
Yes, I am so excited to have Parul Punjani on our show today. We're going to have a candid conversation with her as how it was for her as a South Asian woman who chose not to live in a box that was defined for her. Parul works as a finance professional and she is actually a really good friend of mine. So excited to have you, Parul.
Hi, ladies. It's nice to be welcome. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. And, I'm so excited to hear about your journey. So before we get into all of that talk, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just to give us a snapshot of your life?
Sure. So I'm a dancer. I love to dance. I love cooking. And, I know they say females love to cook. No, let's not stereotype. Let's not put that in a box. But I do enjoy creating. So I'm a fun creator when it comes to it, whether it's cocktails or appetizers or eats, whatever the case is. And I love silly videos, just picking at other stereotypes that shouldn't be, they're not fun, but it's kind of pulling them apart and saying, hey, yeah, we hear it, but here's our side to that sort of story without, it's adding that little sarcasm twist to it. I am big on family. I come from a very big family. I don't mean just my immediate, my extended family. My father's of 11 and my mom's of 5. So we're pretty big South Asian family, Punjabi family to add, so we're loud, we're fun. And, there's a saying that Punjabis say, khao piyo ash karo, we live by it.
So did you grow up in the US, Parul?
I did. So I came here at a very, very young age. I was born in India, but grew up, in New York, New Jersey my whole life. Yeah.
So you've been challenging the status quo, it seems.
Yeah.
by those, just by what you were saying about those videos, that you're noticing things. So you might have a very keen ear and eye for when people are living in confinement or by sort of so many rules and regulations. And do you challenge because you want justice or you want fairness, equity, inclusion, or do you challenge because of another reason? Where do you come from on that?
I think it's more equity, right? Because in at least my experience from the South Asian culture, it's always men are looked to be the better of the gender, while I strongly feel that women are the carriers. We are the caretakers. We, I get it, back in the days, we didn't work, so we weren't the breadwinners. However, times have changed and we are still having to prove ourselves to be the breadwinner as well as the caretaker of the family, whether it's taking care of your husband or your in-laws or your children, or leaving yourself to be last. When when you're flying, they always say put your mask on first. As South Asian women, we feel very guilty for ever putting ourselves first. And for me, it's always been, I get it that men carry some sort of weight, but women can show up just as much and more and beyond. But it's constantly having to prove ourselves. That's quite frustrating. frustrating because it's saying that I have to always, stand my ground and always have this argument when why do we have to prove ourselves when we do it every single day in our actions, right? It's not just saying we have to talk the talk. We actually can walk the walk. So for me, it was not being in that confined box to say, oh, one gender is superior than the other when we equally provide. I'm not saying men don't, but women provide just as much. Sorry, I am a female.
Right. And so do you think that it's the lack like in our culture, we're just not acknowledged, right? We're just not there's never positive affirmation in our, generally speaking, in the South Asian culture. It's always picking on the negative stuff. So do you think that if there was acknowledgement and appreciation for that work, that we wouldn't have to prove ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would make a difference for you personally?
Yeah, for me, as well as, I understand that, and I want to put this out because my family does watch my social media, that it's not everyone in the family, but it is a lot of people in the family that have done this, where we sort of have this character and standard for our sons versus our daughters, to say that, they have to be this sort of way. And my dad has always raised us. I mean, he comes from a conservative culture. However, he's always raised his daughters and said, like, these are my sons, like, I don't think of my daughters as daughters, but there are my sons as well to some degree. And then others, he still has that, mindset of like, this is still my daughter. This is still my baby girl, which you're kind of that duality you play. And you're like, well, wait, if I'm this, then why am I put to this stand?
So one more question. In
Yeah.
your family, are there more, like, do you have brothers as well, or are you only sisters?
No, we do have one brother. We're 3 sisters and 1 brother. Yeah.
Okay,
So
because I wanted to see where you fit into this male, female, the gender, because I think what you're speaking into is the gender biases that occur in our culture that are just so prominent everywhere we go. And so that's one topic I really want us to explore a little bit from your viewpoint as a South Asian, as a woman, as someone who's, come from India but has spent her life in the US, because I think you get to see different angles of how it was there. And have you gone back to India, and you maybe tell us what your experience of, these aspects were there? Because I think this overall theme that we're talking about here, reading your form, gender bias was very prominent, proving your point or having to make a stand for yourself and proving that you're worthy of being an equal and having equity. And then the third thing was that you by choice are not, you made it a point not to get married because the culture's expectation of you to do that. And I think these 3 topics are so important for us to talk about, because especially the last one, because we all fall into that trap. At some point, it's a trap and we fall into the pressure. So by you maintaining that stand, I really want to explore that a lot.
So let's start with that first one about the growing up and seeing the gender biases and all of that.
So I did come from, to answer Rabia, your question earlier was, did I go back to India? I have gone back, not as much as maybe some have hoped, but I just have never felt very welcomed in a different sense. Like, yes, my family is loving. My family is very welcoming to many degrees, but just the environment and the culture there, I just see a very negative side to women, especially coming from abroad, right? Because again, it's another version of duality where I'm Indian, but then you're looked as, oh, you're trying to be very Americanized. And I never understood, like, what does that mean, that because I come from a Western culture, I'm not cultured? Or that I don't understand the customs, or that my parents, haven't raised us in that mindset. Like, it kind of is like, well, you're attacking me, but you're attacking my parents in that sense, because you're saying that, oh, they didn't teach us the values or the customs that are from there. But I don't agree, because what I am 2 different cultures. I am raised in a different mindset. And yes, I relate to that in some capacity, but I don't agree with it. And I think that's where people see that, oh, you're trying to be this other thing or person, when honestly, it's just they're seeing a different side because I'm not agreeing with that culture. So they just, it's kind of like a defensive mechanism, right? Because you're like, oh, well, this person doesn't relate to me. How can they understand what I'm going through? When in reality, I see components of it. I can't relate 100%. Yes, I'm not bred and born there. I'm born, but I'm bred here. So it's that playing that dynamic of you're kind of a third person, and I can't say that, oh, I speak there, because I don't, right? I can speak for what I've grown up here, and here conversations are more prominent than there are over there when talking about certain subjects, right? So your mindset is just open in a different caliber. It's not to say anything bad, it's just a different side of the conversation and more people having it, as opposed to only just women having it with women or men having it with men in India, in my sorry. So Sana, you were saying about my first part?
Yeah, so you growing up here and then growing up and going back over there and seeing what were the things that you saw that led you to come up with these type of views that you have on gender bias, and what did you feel when you noticed this type of bias towards women?
One of two, I'm going to say two of the biggest things is the way I dress, and the second being the way I speak, right? Because I'm so outspoken and I'm very direct, and I don't follow that, oh, women should only speak when certain things are asked of them, and I feel like it was a thing where I was judged by the way I was dressing, right? It's too provocative if you're wearing a dress that's above your knee. And for me, it's like, oh, we can wear saris that are crop top, showing our belly, our cleavage is sort of out, but me wearing a dress above my knees is provocative. Okay. And my cleavage wasn't exposed in any part, so it's kind of, haha, okay, let's play this. Or if I'm wearing short shorts, right? I grew up as a tomboy. So wearing short shorts for me, I used to go shopping with my dad and he would take me buying short shorts, right? Like that's just, I used to run track. We're running in itty bitty, sort of bikini shorts. So for me, it's like, okay, people wear bathing suits. I don't even care to wear bathing suits, and you're talking about this is not how a woman should dress. I get it that, and this is culture coming into play in India. There are a lot of rapes that happen, right? So for that standpoint, you're trying to protect your women. And I get that and I respect that. However, it's about teaching and having that communication with everybody to say what is actually the way that things should be, right? And just because you wear something, you don't think that someone's going to still look at you in a sexual manner. If you could be covered up in sweats and someone will gaze at you. You could be in a bathing suit and someone will gaze at you. You know what I mean? So I don't think I have to restrict myself in that sense if I'm comfortable wearing that outfit, right? And just by them being, near me, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to be around you for that reason. It's like, okay, you don't have to be. The other topic was, again, saying certain things, right? Again, we're taught that women shouldn't talk a certain way. We should be dainty and delicate, or we shouldn't talk back, right? That's, I think, a common thing that a lot of South Asians can relate to, that our parents have said, but we talk back. If we disagree with something, or we don't like where it's going, and we have an opposite opinion, it's saying, oh, you're talking back to us, you don't respect your elders. And it's just like why does it always have to come down to that, right? Why not try to understand each other's point of view? Because I'm growing up in a different time line than you were raised in, right? You might have had less opportunities than we do now. And I think that plays a different role, right? Women are giving more authority in America than maybe in India, right? Now divorce is more prominent. I'm just going to go a little tangent. Divorce is now prominent more in India, but in America, it's a custom that you date around, you date before you get married. It's not you just get into an arranged marriage. Just one topic to show that how the timeline is different, back 20, 30 years versus even now, right? The dynamic is just different. And if you're grown up in that custom, your friends are that way, your friends' parents are that way, you don't think differently. Yes, I see a different culture, but I'm still raised here, right? I get to live by this society. I have to live in this society. And what's wrong with me wanting to be part of that society because I relate to it?
Yeah.
So question for you is that, do you have friends that are like you in North America, or do you think you're different than them as well?
In between. So I have a lot of friends who relate to this mindset, and then some, they relate to that sort of custom. Again, it's everybody's norm, right? I'm not going to judge them for that, as they don't judge me for the way I am. So I think everybody's there's like bits and pieces of it, right? Like Sana is totally different, in that mindset. Like she was one way at one point, but she has a different point of view now, right? So like, I don't know how to really answer that, because everybody evolves differently at a different point, right? Our point of views change. How I used to think 10 years or 5 years ago is not necessarily the same way I think of today,
Right.
so I don't know where I fall.
Yeah, but the reason I'm asking this question is because you have such a strong belief system about what you find wrong about the culture and where it needs updating or transformation. And then I'm asking because how you choose your friends, sometimes we tend to make friends that have similar values, that have similar interests, that are more like us, just because we want to spend time with them, we want to respect them, we don't want to have these differences. But what I'm hearing from you is I have a variety of friends and I accept them as well.
Yeah, so I do in that capacity, yes. And in the other capacity is I have a lot of male and female friends close to me, right? And they are very pro women independence. So that is what I do gravitate to. They are strong women in the sense where they like to have careers and family, right? Do I say that, oh, they conform to marrying early or later? No. Everybody had their choice. And I think that's what gravitates to me is they made their choice according to what was right for them, right? And I'm not saying that Indian community in India is wrong or any capacity. It's just what they've lived by, and not a lot of pushback has happened. Whereas here, again, it is a mix of cultures, right? Where they already were this way and we kind of conformed into that sort of, or we molded ourselves into this society. So we may look like we're forward, but in reality, this is how they've grown up and we just molded ourselves here. Right. So our viewpoint is a little bit different than what's over there. But again, it's, times are changing even in India. Like you can see it in the entertainment industry. You can see it in women having more careers and women getting married even later over there. It's changing. The dynamic is changing.
It's interesting you say that because from my perspective, I'm from Pakistan, and what I've seen is that so people that come to North America, so my parents came in the 70s and they brought a mindset that was from the 70s era. And they come to North America with that mindset and now they've locked it in. That's the mindset that they're raising their entire family around. And then I went back to Pakistan many years later and I'm like, wow, they are so evolved. And here I am, the one that came to the West, the most backwards one. That's
It's
how I
crazy,
saw it.
yeah.
We get locked into a bubble. I think we raise our kids in a bubble based on that time that we came from. But you're saying your dad was different.
Yeah, you know what it is? I think it's our parents coming to a different country. They want to keep the values and customs, right?
Sure.
So I agree with a component of that. And I think they themselves don't know how to get out of that bubble. So they stay in the bubble that they know, which is not wrong. But I think where the problem comes in, and this is a problem, I'm stating that as my opinion, that if you're not willing to mold yourself into a different mindset, that's where we get stuck, right? And if you see it as where your children are trying to teach you, as opposed to, oh, you think your children are disrespecting you, those are the two mindsets you have to play it out, right? Now, I can't speak for people who choose that way. I don't know why your parents stuck to it versus my mom and dad adapted to a certain degree, like they accept what society we live in. They accept that, and I'm going to be personal with my life. I used to go out for college. I was pretty much a straight A student. I loved being in school, but I also loved partying at, the other side of it and coming home late 2, 3, o'clock in the morning. And I understand my parents are probably worried, but after a while they knew that I was responsible and they trusted, like, okay, if I come home at 3, I'm still up at 6, 7, attending my classes and still trying to get my, A's as much as I could. I got B's, what happens in life, but it's the compromise you give. But I also participated in other activities in school. For me, it was like becoming this well-balanced act. And again, having to prove myself, like I can be this person and be this other side of it also, where I can have all these luxuries. But that was a stand I took, right? And I had to constantly, again, prove myself to my parents for them to feel comfortable and trust me. It's just how much we want that fight. For me, I wanted that fight.
So did your parents give you a hard time?
So which
So when you're at overall, or wherever you want to lean into this from, they knew that you weren't that person that's going to fit into this box. I think they might have noticed that earlier on in your childhood, because you're in a different environment. You've got this robust personality. You state what you want. You're yourself. And so you're not submissive. You're not, and I'm saying this, I've just met you, but I can tell that these core personality traits that you have must have been present in your childhood. And so they saw, or were they present in your childhood? When did you know that? So in your childhood and your upbringing, when did you know that you're different? And after knowing that you're different, did you get that pushback from your parents at any point in any capacity? Or did they just say, you know what, she's different, let her be, let her explore who she is?
You know, it's interesting you say that. I don't think I realized that I was different until maybe junior high to high school. And the reason why I say this is I grew up as a tomboy, right, playing sport, but I was never sort of shown that that wasn't the way to be. Yes, my parents would say, don't play rough and, you know, like stop getting your dresses ruined all the time because you're playing rough, because I would love wearing, there was a point where I loved wearing dresses, but playing rough with the boys. Like I played football, I played, you know, dodgeball, we played tag, we played whatever, name it, sports that kids play, you know, like, and they never, until the point where I was just like, okay, I don't want to wear dresses. I want to wear, you know, shorts and shirt and baggy jeans and baggy shirts. That was just the style with sneakers, right? And I don't think I was ever told like, oh, that this is the way guys are supposed to be and girls are supposed to be. So I think my parents never put that on me for me to realize that it's not normal, right? Because I played with the kids on the block, whether they were boys and girls, and predominantly it was boys. So for me, again, I was playing heavily in sports. So I didn't know that it wasn't normal because my parents never stopped me or told me that, oh, this is not what girls and boys do. Even growing up in school, you know, like it's co-ed gyms. Again, this is my mindset of growing up in America, right? Like we have co-ed gym classes. Again, I don't think of it. We have separate lockers to change, but no one said, oh, women are not supposed to do this or boys are supposed to do this until junior high and high school, where they're like, oh, well, girls are not supposed to play football, or, you know, we can play touch football. And I'm like, no, I'm used to tackle. Like, I'm going to tackle you, you know, like we're going to play the way it's supposed to play, whatever the case is, in joking matters. But it was then people are like defining our roles, and, you know, we're starting to develop, we're having our period. It then starts becoming more prominent. Oh, this is girls versus boys and what you're allowed to do. And
it's that adolescent stage where everything becomes important. Now, don't get close to the boys and don't go out dating, don't meet them. I can so relate to everything you've said. I completely get what you mean, that no one actually tells you, but then the expectation, you should know this because you're from this culture, right?
But how would I know, right?
Exactly.
Like and again, I grew up watching American television, right? Where again, parents, you know, are very affectionate in front of their children. Indian culture, no, like back in the days, you saw, you know, a sexual scene and you'd see flowers and, you know, like to be as dramatic, but that's what it was, right? Like you just don't show that love and affection as much. And I'm saying it from where I grew up. Maybe other Desi families are different, and I'm sure there are, and not everybody is the same. But I know my family how they were, and I know how my extended family. There were a few aunts and uncles who were very affectionate, but the majority were not. You know, like they just don't show it as much. And in America, like I'd go to my friends' houses for dinners and you know, breakfast sometimes because we're going to school together. And you see their parents just different way. TV, they talk about dating earlier on. God forbid you talk about dating in Indian culture. It's just no, until then later on you're expected just to be married. It's like, oh, so I should have found a guy, or now you're arranging me into this love marriage here, sort of, right? You know, like, and I get it. And my parents and my uncles and aunts, again, they were here even longer than us. So they kind of adapted to most of the people that were married in my family, predominantly, they're all love marriages. And then kids, my generation of kids, love marriages. Only one or two few where it wasn't arranged to the fact where, oh, you didn't meet the person. It was like, okay, we'll set you up and you get to decide if you want to be with somebody, right? So I know we're going into tangents, but I'm just trying to give you the dynamic of, you know, like that, again, that duality. And then in India, it's like, oh, well, right now, I don't want to disclose my age, but at the age I am, I'm a grandma, you know, and I know me and Sana have this joke where I'm a buddhi, grandma in different aspects, but according
You're a
to
grandma, what am I?
you know, but you're married, you have children, you know, I'm unmarried and I don't have children. For me, I am, oh, who are you going to find? And these have been comments, and, you know, I'm going to talk about my experiences, not outer body or other people, what I hear. People are like, oh, well, you're only going to find divorcees and you're not going to find anybody. But it's like, wait, hold a minute. If you wanted doctors in life, you know, doctors are just coming out of the woodworks. They're not married and they're late 30s as well. especially if they went to a specialty of being surgeons, they're probably still in school, So,
There you go.
so
That's
are
what you're
you
gonna get.
questioning them and telling them that they're old men and they're only going to find divorcees? So you say this to women, but are you saying it to your son? I don't know. I don't know if they are. I'm just questioning it, right? Because I don't know, and I wonder that if you're saying that, because from my point of view, it's like, okay, well, I wanted a career, and why is it bad for me to want a career? Aside from that, I know my parents have always said, like, oh, you'll have kids and you'll have kids later on, then you'll be too old to raise them. I mean, semantics aside, sure, maybe that is because I feel old some days, and I tell Sana I want to knock out at 10 p.m. I want to go to bed. So I get it. Raising a child and having that attention to them, I get it. That mindset, but is that the only mindset, or is it, again, we have to be married at 23? Like I started having I started having like proposals come early on. I'm in college, and my mom thankfully supported us, where she's like, no, she's gonna have her degree first, bachelor's. I was like, okay, well, I want to go for my master's too. My mom's like, okay, after your master's we'll think about it. And in my head I'm like, okay, lady, but really we're gonna think about this much later in life, because I'm gonna have a career even before that. And I get it. They're like, oh, you can have both. But at some point, there is a cap. At some point, you do have to focus on family as a woman, right? They expect you to be this caretaker, again, of your spouse or your children, So, but for me, again, I was raised with that mindset because that's what I had seen, right? And I was like, I don't want to be this. I can't be this,
So I want to ask you, now that you've made these decisions, right? You've made the decision not to get married at the typical, the traditional age. You've done your thing. You've got your education. You've gone into the workforce. You've become self-sufficient. You are an empowered woman, and you're choosing to be single. Are you choosing to be single, or are you open now to the possibility of having a relationship? Now that you have done that, you've broken free of that cultural tradition already.
I can't answer that right now. I don't know. If part of me is choosing it, and part of me is, like my friends are, some were early marriages, and some, I don't know, marriages is the word, but some were married early and some now, right? Later on with their careers. And they asked me that same thing too, like, okay, are you going to get married now? And in my head, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want it. Maybe if I meet the right person, sure, I'll be open to it. I don't know. I don't, we'll see what life has in store. But I am choosing to be single for the most part. I enjoy it.
You want to be single. This is by choice that you like your company, and you've got
I love my company.
And you're choosing not to have kids as well when you make that choice, or are you choosing?
I don't agree to that, right? Maybe I might not have my own birth children, just because, again, we have a ticking time, physical body wise, right? Our biological clock. I have always been a firm believer of adopting and fostering, and I get it. People are like, oh yeah, it's easier said than done. I get it, but having your own natural kids is not the easiest thing for many women as well. There's a lot that go to post-traumatic, like disorders that happen, right? So it's not always easy. Is it a choice that do I care that if they're on my own? No. I've always been a firm believer that I'm okay with adopting and taking on, if we can love our friends and say we love them, or we can love a spouse, they're not related to us, but we love them, right? It's just to not saying, oh, I'm trying to be incestual, but like you're saying someone who isn't related to you, you can love them. That child may not be related to me with my DNA, but I can still love another child, another person's child. Yes, there's a whole slew of issues that may come up. If they have parents, their parents fight, we're getting into a whole nother realm of life, and there's always going to be curves. We'll play it by ear when life happens. I don't want to restrict myself into that thinking that, oh, just because I have a biological clock, now I have to marry someone forcefully or settle and have a child, but just because I want my own DNA. Now there's so much technology, I can insert my own DNA.
Do you think that your choice not to fall into the typical patterns or the traditions, do you think that is influencing you to have or not have a relationship? Or do you think that conscious you'd like to have a companion? There's nothing wrong with having it. There's nothing wrong if you don't have it either. There's no right or wrong. So I want to understand this a little bit. I want to know where it's, where the root of it is. Is it coming from that influence that, oh my God, the marriages that I've seen are just like crap and I don't want anything to do with that. So why bother? Just let me just date people and enjoy my life. enjoy my job, enjoy my money, not get bogged down and get into all of that.
So ideally, yes, having a companion is nice, just because again, it brings its own perks, right? The other side is, how do I put this? So a part of me, yes, the way I am, right? Because again, just the way I am and what I'm willing to compromise with, if I see that the person is not able to adapt to that, I feel like I push back. Just because again, there are hard no's in life and what I'm willing to compromise with, right? And I get it. Our families have always said, oh, you have to compromise to some level. You call it a compromise? Absolutely. I call it adjusting to another person's lifestyle because, again, just as much as I have a lifestyle and mindset, they do. So it's kind of meddling the two together, right? So I always look at that component of it to say, hey, are you going to be able to adapt to me, or are you just going to want to change who I am again to fit into, oh, your parents are not going to like me, or my parents might not like you, whatever the case might be, or you're worried about society. So anytime someone comes to me and they're like, oh, they're worried about society and lokya and their family, I'm just so turned off by it because I'm just like, where's your mindset? Where's your brain to tell me what you're willing to do in life and what you're able to adapt to, right? So for me, yes, I get guarded and I close myself off and I don't give the opportunity because they should get that chance to grow and experience as much. So I get it. And Son and I had this conversation as well that slowly, I'm adapting and learning as well because I do have to allow them, because a shock is a shock to anybody, but you have to allow them to react to it. So that's something I'm learning, that give people that room to react just as much as, you don't want to be judged for your reactions, meaning I don't want to be judged and I want to give that opportunity to process. I should give other people that opportunity to process. I am becoming more self-aware of that, Rabia. I am.
What I am seeing in Parul's whole story coming up for me is, she's been doing this since she's a child, right? You have been saying no to cultural norms since you're growing up. And I think it's more probably your upbringing that allowed you, like you said, your parents and you, they were more open-minded. They let you wear whatever you wanted to wear. They let you do whatever you wanted to do. But like what you two were saying about, nobody told you that you're supposed to be living that cultural way, and the way you were raised in Canada and US, you started to pick up those values. But for me, growing up in a really cultural family where I was, shown all those cultural values and shown that way to grow up, I wasn't allowed to wear what I wanted to wear. I wasn't allowed to go where I wanted to go. So I grew up in a very cultural, sheltered environment. Nobody still taught me none of those things either. So they don't teach you that stuff. That stuff is, you're supposed to just somehow pick it up from the examples around you. You're supposed to pick it up from what your mom did and what your sister did and what all the other women in the culture has done. That's just something that's given. But the fact that Parul always had, I don't know what word to, I guess, awareness as well as courage.
I don't know if it was awareness though.
To say no and to constantly challenge it, even as a child. But there must be some kind of backlash that you have gotten, maybe not from your immediate family. But like you said, you went to India and you got the backlash from there for the women from over there, the men from there, blah, blah, you probably got it. But here too, I'm sure you probably, judgments and stuff like that from the Desi people around you. Look at her. She thinks she's better. She's not getting married. She's all American. She doesn't want to have kids. I'm sure you got that a lot. So one question is, how did you deal with that? Did that bring your self-esteem down at all? Or did that affect you at all at a personal level? How did you deal with that? And what was your drive? Like, as a child, that didn't come to me, that understanding of that I am better than doing what I want to do rather than what they want me to do.
So one thing you said, right? Like awareness. Again, I don't know if it was always awareness. It was more reaction to me not wanting to do something a certain way just because it didn't make sense to me. I blindly follow something just because someone told me it's a culture aspect, it's a custom or religion. For me, it has to make sense to some capacity. You're going to tell me something that to say
so
that
I'm going to too. I just didn't say it out loud. I just questioned it.
Yes, my parents, that I was very outward in that sense and question. She was, and I hate to put it into certain, right? But deep down, I think my mom had the sense of, yes, I want my daughters to be different. I want them to be independent. I don't want them to be dependent on someone and something. I want them to have that education. But have their own standing to it. And I think even though my mom didn't vocalize it, her actions showed it in that matter, because So I understand that. No, right? So there's a component of that where my mom's probably like, this is not how you speak, or this is not how you do it, or there's a time and place for it. But my mind was like, I don't understand at that time. Now, your message across, and you may have the well intentions, but sometimes it's the way we speak and the way what we say something, certain words that just doesn't resonate with people, right? Where I'm learning that now, a diplomatic approach that you have to play, sort of. You can say it, but it's how you say it and when you say it that can really have that effect on people, where they're actually angry and is uncultured or whatever the case might be. When in reality, I understand my culture. I just don't agree with it, as you should respect me.
So, if you left our listeners with a great message for the ones that are not fitting into the box in their community, in their lives, and in the driver, we have our parents, our husbands, our brothers, how you do things in regard, once you have that awareness.
But it's not easy.
If you could go back and change,
I know people say, oh no, yes, maybe, but I don't fully believe, wasn't as an eloquent speaker. But again, no one taught me to be a better speaker, right? Or to say that maybe we say it this way, we get your message. Back and forth, it's like, well, I would have gone to my teachers and had what conversation. They're American, they don't understand my Indian culture, right? Or and in lengthy terms to them, just for them to even gravitate, maybe the dynamic and deeper dynamic. Right? So it's kind of like, what could I have done differently? I don't know, right? We can play the what ifs, but I'm in this position now. It's because of that journey, right? And I
no, no, no,
know better because of
Not to
that journey.
question, like you are at the perfect place where you're meant to be, where you're supposed to be by the choices you've made. But in knowing what you know today, there's a difference between regret and I could have and I should have. I should have is regret. I could have is empowered. Basically, you're telling this message to other women that are going through what you went through, and they have this opportunity to learn from your mistakes. Because irrespective of how many great things and the outcome is, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes and saying, hey, I made a mistake or two, but this is what it got, and this is this is why I'm here, right? A message that you could give.
Or lessons learned as well.
So you say that I should have is the regret, I could have is the empowerment. I wouldn't have pushed back any less. For me, I think that I pushed back every bit away, whether it was a change for me or the next generation, or next generation being my family to come, or whoever, my niece even, or my nephews, like for them. Again, for them to understand, Parul or Parul Masi is this way, I don't think I would change those aspects of me pushing back. Again, what I could have done differently was maybe my tone in which I say something, or in the words that I use, again, to maybe express what I'm feeling. That would be the thing that I would change. If anything, would I have been any different to say that women should be a certain way? I don't want you to define that women should be this way just because you've been this way and your society taught you this way, right? Or the American society teaches us so we can be so outward. I get that sense too. I get this sense too. So I'm finding my in between, and one of the things, Sana, you asked me, did it affect me growing up, because you weren't able to speak out? Yes, it affected me. But I think it came to a point where it's like, how much am I going to let it put me into, I don't know if depression is a word, but to make me feel bad about who I am versus just saying that, well, this is who I am, right? And then showcasing like, well, I'm going to continue this way because I truly believe that there was nothing wrong with me to present myself in this way. You say that I am wrong for presenting myself this way. However, I don't see it as problematic because what is to say what is right and wrong? Why is it wrong, right? For me, again, it was that question of you're telling me that it's wrong, but you're not able to answer to me why it's right. And that's where that confusion comes in for me, where again, you're making me understand or telling me I should be this, but you haven't explained to me why it's wrong. You say it's wrong, but why is it wrong? Why? Because the culture that you grew up looks down upon it? That's not reason enough for me to say it's wrong, just because you were suppressed into that culture. Or, in American society where women are not paid equally, right? Why? I'm going to fight for it. Yes, women have this imposter syndrome where we're always proving ourselves, even in the workplace, right? Where I have all these qualifications and I'm coming into there and saying, well, am I really qualified just because I don't check off all of the boxes in this role description? When I walk in, it's completely different than the job description that was put out for me, right? Like I'm wearing these multiple hats that I didn't have experience in. I didn't come with that experience, but I learned it. Why? Because I put my efforts into learning something, right? But we have this sense of I'm not good enough. And for me, I felt like I don't want to keep pouncing on myself for that because it's not fair. So I want to do something different for that, right? I want to show people that we are worthy. I am worthy. I have all these qualifications or skill sets. And for me, it was like, well, again, a lose-lose situation. Which do I go with? Someone's going to think negative about it either way. Well, what's in it for me and my benefit? I'm going to prove it. I'm going to say it to people what I have. I have this qualification and what I'm willing to achieve, what qualifications I don't have, right? Or I'm willing to be this Indian daughter, and it's okay if I have a mix of different cultures, but guess what? Because there's Indians who live in other countries as well. They play that duality. It doesn't make them less cultured. If anything, they're multicultural because now they have an Indian culture from India, and they could have, an African culture, or, whichever country they are within Africa. They could have this American Indian culture, Canadian Indian culture, or Indian Pakistani culture, right? Whatever Desi South Asian,
Influence
region
is
you're from.
inevitable. We are going to be influenced by our cultures, the environment that we are in. It's just natural. It's impossible to live in a place that is not from where you are from and not be influenced and be and fit into that box that you left. Once you leave that place, I think even if you stay in that place, there are so many diverse personalities, people and situations and circumstances and experiences. How can you stay in that box? And people perhaps, this is conditioning more than it is reality, because reality is that people don't stay in that box. They move out of that box and their box grows. I like to call it a circle. And that circle expands. It expands and it keeps growing as we grow. But it's very natural to be influenced by your environment. And for anyone who feels that they're doing something wrong by being influenced by it, I know, because our Desi culture is one of authoritative, of collectivism, of conforming, of blind faith, of trusting our elders, respecting our elders. And then the Western culture that we've grown in, it's polar opposite. Be independent, question everything, find your path, explore your life, get to know yourself.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, oh my God, which way do I go? And I don't fit into either. I fit into both, because there are aspects of me that are Western and there are aspects of me that are Eastern. And I love the fact that I can be both. That's what I'm hearing from you, that you've got these elements of all, and you've made this new recipe, and Parul's this new recipe of these two cultures, right? You're a great cook, you're saying, right? You love to cook. So here you've got a brand new dish here.
And I cook both Desi and non-Desi stuff. And for me, like, if you look at my page, like, I'm very much in line with the languages that we speak. I know Hindi. I don't ask me to read and write of it. I don't know it. But if you're speaking to me, and I understand Hindi, I can speak Hindi back, Punjabi, right? Like, and I love my culture in the sense of not just, people look at the aesthetics or our clothes and stuff. No, our language, even Urdu, my grandfather used to speak Urdu and write Urdu, right? It's the poetry in which it's spoken and how we express certain things, right? That aspect of it. I love that, yes, some people, India is very many cultures trying to fit into something, right? Like, if you go to different regions, there's a different culture and mindset, right? So I think it's a mishmash of a lot going on in India itself. But aside from that, there's a lot of the way that our elders are part of that community, right? How we are a village versus people say, oh, you need a village to raise, but our culture believes in that, right? We rely on that, which that's what the culture and custom is, right? Being able to, again, relate to the language, our food, know what it represents more than just, the clothes and the bangles, but even those aspects, you have to understand where they originated from, right? Do a lot of people actually know where those came from, or, what the purpose of people even just selling it, or what purpose it was for. So I think that is more culture and customs than just saying, oh yeah, she's not Indian because what? Because I am American too. I speak English. I want to speak English because it's my more, comfortable language. But you're saying that I can't speak Hindi. I can speak Hindi to you. It might be broken. It might be, stuttering a bit, but I do that with English too. So what difference does it make? Yeah, yeah. And you hear it, right? Like, certain ways I express, I feel like my Indian words express it, my American, English expresses it.
Yeah. What I'm thinking of, Rabia, is interculturalism, what we talked about with Dr. Sujata. It always comes back to that.
What is that?
So we have an episode coming up with Dr. Sujata, who talks about interculturalism and understanding where we're coming from versus telling people whether they fit in or not. Just understanding those cultural influences that are naturally ingrained in.
So what I'm getting that from Parul, from that perspective, is understanding each of us within our culture, like the Desis who are two Desis and who are judging us for not being Desi and not following those cultural norms, and they're judging us, and the ones who are American and they're still judging us too for living here and not following it. So Parul also said we need to understand each other, where we are coming from. She grew up here and she's not agreeing, but she's not putting them down for following it or something like that. So I kind of get that just from her too, versus understanding different cultures, but at the same time understanding each other, who we are in the same culture too, to understand our differences and just to accept for who we are. So Parul, I think this was awesome, what everything you said about, I took a few notes down on some of the things that stood out to me. And one was this one of understanding each other within our culture. You're proving your point, always growing up, and you stuck to it. That's really for me, because I would always challenge myself. I was like, okay, I'm questioning this. Maybe I'm wrong, because they're all saying the same thing, right? So maybe I'm on the wrong. Maybe something's wrong with me because I don't agree with them. That was my mindset. And I was on this constant conflict my whole life with my own self. But you stood your ground and you pushed back always, and you said no. And you also talked about like self-love and self-worthiness, and knowing those things is a lot to, and especially growing up in the culture and not having to actually have to go out and learn that. So after everything that you have learned, you've pushed back, you've been through, you've done your decisions, you've done what you felt was right to you, to be you. Who are you, Parul?
Oh man, who am I? I don't know if that's such a big question. I think I'm still evolving, right? I don't know if I know who I am, like, to answer who am I? Like what is supposed to be the answer? Does anybody ever know? I don't know.
So maybe just a little reframe. Who are you now? This is not the end. This is the evolution of you, and we're always arriving. So who is Parul today?
Still a very big question. I don't know.
You can talk about some of your traits.
Yeah, I'm an independent woman, like you said, right? Similar to you, there was many times where I questioned, am I wrong? Because everybody is on the left side and I'm on the right side. Or, I mean, it's not to be like right or wrong. It's just a side I pick, right? And saying that, oh, should I follow the path just because everyone follows it, right? Is it really what it's supposed to be, or the way that's supposed to be? And again, for me, it was like, I'm going to question it again and again. I'm going to continue to question it because I want to figure out if I should be on that side or can I stay on this side. But it was realizing that this comes with loneliness, because I may be on it by myself, and am I okay to be on that? Or do I need that crutch to feel secure and say, oh, maybe I should just go on it and just comply with everyone, right? And I think that's where, again, I refuse to let myself feel that way, so that's who I am, that where I till date I'm still saying that if I feel this and I question something, and sometimes that comes with, again, the lonely side, you can call it, or the bulk of people's side, I think I want to stay on this path of figuring out what should be the way, right? And I've come to realize that I am a mix of both cultures. I am both, American, and I am both Indian. Whether people want to believe it or not, or think it or not, I'm okay with that. And that's what it is, who I am. I'm okay with people saying, or pinpointing and saying, well, Parul should be this way. Well, that's great. You think Parul should be this way, but this is Parul. I am this outspoken person. I've always been it. I love dancing. I love speaking to my parents in Hindi and English both, or Punjabi to my father in English, at both times. Do I want to be that domesticated wife and domesticated daughter all the time? No, I don't. But if that means that, I am loving to my parents, I want to keep that bond with my parents and relationship. And sometimes that's going to come with fights, because I am going to disagree. And I'm going to continue to disagree on things that I don't feel are the norm, right? If they think that this is not normal, I'm content with not being normal. I'm okay with that. I like being different then. If that's what that defines me as, I'm okay being non-normal. Let's reinvent the norms, right, ladies?
Totally.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about reinventing those norms, and for the main reason of how they serve you as an individual, as that woman, that man, that child, whoever, the parents, doesn't matter, that they just have to serve us, and it's okay to modify them.
Yeah, and I want to I want to continue advocating, and I say this both in a workplace and with people I've worked with, my colleagues, and in my personal life, right? Like, I want to advocate for what my belief is and why I believe it, and if that means that again, that phrase of we're constantly fighting, it's okay, because it's something that I believe in, right? That is a worthy cause to say, yes, I want to continue speaking about it. I'm okay to have this fight, to say I want to bring more awareness to it, right? I'm not neither here, neither there. I am something new, and everybody is to some degree, right? But you have to understand where I come from versus just saying, oh, she's just this way, or she won't change. No, I've changed a lot. I have. Whether people see it or not, whether they believe it or not, again, people are clouded by that sometimes, right? And that's okay. They're everyone's going to have their thinking and they have to, go through their process. I just know that if I'm putting myself out there and this is the perception of it, and am I okay with this perception, right? Essentially, because everybody's going to see a different side. They're going to see a different fate, right? They say that we are who we are to every single person different, right? No one person knows us truly, not even ourselves, right? We're still figuring out our way. So we display a certain piece to ourselves to everybody. So again, they're judging us by this small component, even social media, right? People see a little clips and they're like, oh, well, this is who she is. When there's way more to me than just this 30-second clip when I've lived how many years, 30 seconds you define me. Why? Because I spoke out? That's okay. I'll continue to speak out if that's what that means. 30 likes versus 3,000. I'm okay. Not here for the likes. I'm here to be me. Whether you like it or not, that's okay. Whichever way it is. I hope you like it. But
that's a beautiful way to, that message that you're saying. It's not about making other people happy. It's about finding that happiness within and just being comfortable with whatever it is, wherever you are, however you are. It's more important not just about being aligned and true to yourself. People are going to judge me. They're going to label me a certain way, and I'm okay with that. I know who I am, and that doesn't bother me anymore. And so I think that the confidence, that alignment's really, really amazing. So I'd like to ask a question as we, come towards the end of our podcast here. How would you describe yourself today? Are you happy? Are you at peace? Or are you indifferent?
Can you elaborate on what do you mean by indifferent before I answer?
Meaning not happy or at peace, just you're in the middle.
I'm happy and I am, right? Because I think when we're younger, we rely on what our peers are thinking of us, right? We worry a lot about what our elders and society is thinking of us. And I think, as you say it's awareness, but even back then, yes, I was impacted by it, right? Where I was affected by people having this judgment about me. And I chose to close those blinds and say, okay, I'm going to focus less. But they were semi-open because I was still hearing. It's hard not to hear, right? I'm at greater peace because I've come at a point in my life where I have come to say that everybody's going to have an opinion. Everybody has it. People will judge others and forget to look in the mirror themselves. I'm a big believer. I've done it myself. I'm not going to lie about that. I have. Right? Again, it's reactive. It's what we do after the fact, right? So I am happy and I am at peace because I'm no longer relying. Yes, I care about what my parents think. Yes, I care about my family feels to a degree because I don't want to hurt them, right? In certain degrees. But I'm happy with who I show I am to the world, whether it's in the workplace or it's in my personal life, right? Because I don't know, it's just comfort now to say that I know who I am. I know what I believe and why I believe it. And sometimes it just has to stay inside, whether people say it or not. And then sometimes you have to vocalize it to say, well, it might impact others somewhere down the line, right? Because others might be feeling it and they might not be able to say it. Like you said, Sana, right? You weren't able to, but maybe someone else fighting that battle for you can help the next generation or even your parents to say, hey, look, Sana felt this, and we made her feel this awful because all we were trying to do was protect her. Where I feel like genuinely our families do want to protect us, but they don't realize how much it can actually hurt us versus protect. So I can honestly say I am happy, whether people think it or not, because again, I don't define their version of happiness, right? Or that they feel I'm not at peace because again, I could be loud and, they say that, oh, if you're so loud, how can you really be at peace? But I think I am at peace, and that's why I'm able to continue vocalizing because I know I know the ground. So I will continue because I know what I'm saying. I get it. Again, it might be not the words you like, might not be as eloquent, and I could rephrase it different. But again, it's other men and women showing me that, okay, this is what I interpreted from this. Is that what you meant? Maybe just rephrase it because this is maybe a different side to it that someone else can mistake. And that I want to hear from people to say, this is how I interpret it. Okay, I'll hear it. Maybe it was the way I said, but I am genuinely happy. I am because, again, I can walk down the road and I'm happy with myself. People are like, oh, aren't you bored? No, I freaking love being by myself. I love it. And I don't mean by myself where I live. I live with family, but it in my own I just don't like traveling. That's the only thing. When it comes to travels, for some reason, I just want to talk to people, and I just want to have a traveling companion to people watch it. I love people watching. Sorry, I love people watching. Not a creepy way, just just seeing how people interact with each other out in a park or somewhere.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify that. No peeper unless you have
I
your
know
blinds open.
exactly what you mean about people watching. I'm the same way. I love people watching, going into public places and just, gazing and learning from them. And yeah, what do they do? What are they wearing,
Yeah, even like
Guessing what they're
sometimes you
doing.
overhear the conversations, you're just like, I know I shouldn't listen, but I want to listen. Like, I can't stop listening.
Yeah, so what an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Parul. We're coming to the end of our episode, and it's been lovely getting to know your journey, where you've come from and where you are, and how happy and at peace you are with yourself. And ultimately, that's a huge message to everyone. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing yourself with us.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
it
you for
was really
having me.
awesome.
Thank you, ladies. And we'll
It was
see what
really
the
awesome,
journey
Parul.
brings and what it continues to.
Yeah, kudos to you for always breaking the cultural norms and reinventing them even as you were growing up and standing your ground. Like that is, commendable. So proud of you.
It's never, again, like until recent years, it's never something that I was like, oh yeah, I'm being this, this person who vocalizes for everybody. It was never that, right? I just felt like I was always defending myself and questioning because things didn't make sense. It was never for an accolade to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be the voice of the people. No, I'm not trying to be the voice of the people. I'm just trying to be the voice of me and figuring out the way I have to live and the comments I hear and kind of saying, okay, I'm going to push those out and see which ones I let in because I really want to evolve, right? So you do have to let certain comments in just because, again, you have to let them impact, right? You have to say, okay, this hurt me. Why is it hurting me? Why is it affecting me? Why do I have a reaction to it? Right? That's the question. It's like, well, if I wasn't fazed by it, it shouldn't matter, right? But it's affecting. Why? Right? I felt
we
hurt.
don't have those.
Yeah, I felt hurt. It's saying, why was I so hurt by it? It's maybe who the people are saying it, that they should have my back. And these people are not having my back. Or it's what they're saying just doesn't line up to what I'm seeing versus you saying, oh, women should be this way. But again, our clothes, going back to that, oh, okay, but this is what Indian clothing is. We have, lengas, which is a crop top and a skirt with a shawl, like a chunni. And well, how is that not provocative? But my dress is provocative, right? And is it because it's, again, I'm a woman growing up or what? And they say like, oh, buri nazar aati hai. There's going to be evil eye somewhere. I don't know. I didn't intend it.
Your voice that you have chosen to use for the things that you are doing is today impacting many people that are listening. So if someone has resonated with what you've said and would like to connect with you, where can they find you?
I do have an open Instagram and I do put some, again, sarcastic, videos out there. It's Parul, that's me, ParulThatsme, Parul, that's me. Like if you guys have seen it, but I started putting these highlights of these topics. So cook with me, nature with me, motivate with me.
Like you said, it's what you say, but it's how you say it too. So you're sending out that message in your own fun way. And I love it. I love all of your posts. And I think it's you're sending out the message definitely in your own way. It's really motivating. That's what I like about you, is that you don't care what others say because you still always show up as who you are. And, from a Desi perspective, where I have always struggled to be myself, I can totally look at that as inspiring to still show up as who you are, so I love that.
Well, Parul, there is so much that we want to talk to you about, and you can come back as many times as you want, and we'll keep this conversation going because there is a lot to share, and we want to know about this modern day Desi woman and how you can tell us how to be more of ourselves.
Thank you for having me this time.
No, thank you for understanding. And that's what the purpose of our podcast is, right? To let the others know that there's more like them who feel like they don't belong, like the misfits, and who want to do things the way they want to do.
So Sana, it's that time of our podcast. We're two Desi girls
reinventing cultural norms
with love.
Bye-bye,
everybody. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Please rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow the Rabia and Sana show on social medias.
Remember, you can watch the video version on YouTube, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.
If you want life coaching services, or you are reinventing cultural norms for yourself and think you would be a great guest and want to be on our show, please email contact at therabiaandsanashow.com.
And be sure to check out our next episode. See you next time.
See you next time.